All right, welcome back to another episode of Phoenix Edge. This is an RPG and gaming news podcast. My name's Hat.
I'm Eric.
And this is BioPhoenix, and I am guesting on your show, and thank you for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. We were looking forward to having you on here. We've been talking about it a little bit, but it's like you were just back from your trip in, what was it, Switzerland?
Yeah, at the beginning of August, I did a trip where I always wanted to, leave my country and visit another country. And I actually had a friend of mine, living in, well, actually she's from Switzerland, so obviously she lives there. But yeah, so because of that, I figured it'd be a good idea to get my foot wet in a place where I know someone who lives there, and I had a lot of fun there, but I can talk about that all day and I don't want to bore you guys, so
yeah, very cool.
But yeah, it was good.
Yeah, I actually came across your channel on well, actually, before we get into that, let me just read off these topics real quick. So this week we're going to be talking about a recent deal that broke that the Cosmic Star developer, Zeboyd Games, the head of that, I don't know if you want to call it studio, I think it's only a couple people, but they kind of were quoted as complaining about Nintendo and getting indie games on Switch devices. And then also we're going to talk about Dragon Quest XI reviews. At the time of this recording, Dragon Quest XI is not out. So we're just kind of be talking about some of the reaction. Most of them it's positive, a little bit's only like one or two reviews are negative. And then we had a bunch of listener questions we thought were really solid questions. So we have, what games have each of you really enjoyed that were largely disliked by many people, and why? How did you find enjoyment in them? And we also have, what side stories or alternate stories would you like to play from a Final Fantasy series? And then we have Langrisser. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, because I always wondered if I was saying it correctly. Langrisser 1 and 2 is coming out on the Switch and the PS4. And if we have time, we got some remaining comments. But yeah, before we get into all that, BioPhoenix, he's here. He's joining us on our podcast this week, and I think I came across your channel from just clicking on your your icon from a comment somewhere. But you have a lot. You've been doing YouTube for a long time, haven't you? I've seen stuff that's like 5 years ago.
Oh yeah. Well, before I had this channel, I actually did have another channel from 2006, but it got deleted because I uploaded a video that had copyrighted music in it.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah.
So that actually happens. Okay.
Yeah, that can't. Well, it used to be really bad about it. Now it's not as bad, but it can still happen sometimes. But anyways, though, now that I have the channel that I have now, yeah, I've been doing it since 2010, but I haven't really been taking it too seriously until maybe 2013, and that was when I started to do the game reviews that I do. And I've been I usually try and do reviews on games that the games that people don't normally talk about all the time.
Yeah.
For an example, I've done, a lot of Japanese only games. I've done games that are only released in PAL. And of course, I've also just done the oddball games here and there. Mm-hmm. Just to name some examples, I've done an entire series review on the Art and Elico games. And then I've also done, Shadow Hearts. I've done probably a more recent one that I did that I had a lot of fun doing was a PS2 PAL only game called Glass Rose, and a bunch of other random stuff like that. I'll cover pretty much about any oddball game out there.
Yeah, because that's one of the biggest things I've noticed, and I'm a subscriber to your channel. I check all your videos out, and you get through, you pump out game reviews quickly, but they're really well done. But also, I swear to God, you're opening my eyes to a lot of games I've never even heard of before. So you got some really good stuff on there.
Yeah, that's the thing that I like doing, and why I like covering a lot of those games, because I want other people to check out those games for themselves. Even if it's a game that I say is really bad, it could still be a lot of fun to do. And I also do a couple anime reviews here and there, but those ones are a lot harder to do, so I don't do them as often. And when you mentioned about me pumping out videos once a week, believe it or not, I actually work on them way ahead of time, and then I upload them just like, once a week I'll like upload like one here and then one over there, and yeah, I
Okay,
just
that makes
I work on it ahead.
that makes much more sense. Okay, because I was like, man, this guy's like constantly just like beating these games like every week. It's crazy. But
yeah.
yeah, but yeah. So I think your most recent video, I was kind of laughing hysterically on Eternal Quest for the PS2. Yeah, initially when I was watching that video, I was like, oh my God, this game looks awful. And you were trying to be a little positive about it. And then like a quarter of the way through the game, you're like, yeah, this game sucks.
Yeah. Oh my God. God, I'm so glad I didn't have to play through that one very long, because, it's a roguelike and those games are like almost impossible.
Yeah. Well, and it looked terribly designed too. So anyways.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's go ahead and get this started. So Bio, if you want to start us off, what have you been playing this week?
The game I've been mostly playing this week is Yakuza Kiwami 2, a part of the Yakuza series. Have you guys ever heard of it or played them?
I've played Yakuza 1 through 3, but after that I haven't kept up with it. I've wanted to, but I haven't taken the time to play the rest of them.
I haven't really gotten invested into it. I mean, I've seen a lot about it, but how do you like it?
Oh, it's really freaking good. I love it a lot. I actually started playing the Yakuza series at 2, like on PS2, like back like around when it came out, and I was really surprised like what the games were actually like. And that's another reason why I like them, is because like it has like a good mixture of like a very serious storyline that's like actually really good, but it also has like a lot of side quests that are like really goofy and like off the wall and such. So it's a lot of fun. And also, I just like the fact that it's kind of like a modern version of like a game like River City Ransom, where it's like kind of like a beat 'em up with like RPG elements and such. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that game is really good. It's a really good remake of the second game, which was my first Yakuza game. So it's kind of interesting to replaying it again with all these like new features and all that.
I noticed the community, I don't want to say community, but the reviews for this game are pretty split in the middle. Like it's either like really, really good, or some people like maybe they've never even played them before and they tried it out and they felt like some of the systems were kind of dated or whatever, and they just had a hard time with it. Do you think part of it's nostalgia, or do you think a lot of it's just like really, it's just really well done? I'm just curious. I've never played it.
I think for the most part it's well done. I think what a lot of people like do have a hard time with the Yakuza games is that they're very text heavy, and like they're all like Japanese voices, so you have to like read everything, and that's not going to be a thing for everyone there. Doesn't bother me personally, of course, but for a lot of other people though, I can kind of seeing it being like a little bit of a turn off. And also the fact that the game's like battle system, it is like, it's a 3D beat 'em up. So of course, the battles can get a little bit repetitive at times, but for the most part though, like I like the battle system for that. Like you do like a lot of like really like over the top, like finishing blows and such. And especially with this new one, you can actually like pick like people from like off like the side of the road, and they'll like hand you a weapon and you just do something like really crazy with it. So yeah. But yeah, those are some things I can understand people with complaints with the game.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, say I'm someone who has never played the Yakuza series before, and I decided to pick up Kiwami 2 as my first ever Yakuza game. Like, would it hold up as a title by itself, or is it more dependent on the other titles around it to get the most enjoyment out of it?
I'd say it would probably be best to start off with either 0 or Kiwami 1 first, because like the game stories, like they do take place after one another, but of course they do have like a certain thing in each game where you can watch like cutscenes that happened in like the previous game. But for me personally, though, I do like I prefer to actually playing it. But if someone like doesn't feel like spending too much time with knowing all the backstory, they can do that, which is like a good option.
I do remember that in Yakuza 3 they went over the first 2 games, and I was like, oh, it's a nice little recap. I haven't played these in forever, and just when I watch them, they're like every time he's like mentioning something, it always ends with however. This is, this is like, this guy was all great and everything. However, he died.
Yeah.
So you know it's coming then. Okay.
Yeah. But that was pretty fun. But I enjoyed the first 3 Yakuza games. It's just, I feel like they're like real time commitments. So a lot of times I feel intimidated to pick them up.
Yeah, they have a lot of content. Like there's like so much like side quests in that game. Like it's crazy. I don't think I'll ever be able to like 100% complete them there, but I really do like enjoy playing through the story and just doing like the side stuff every now and then and like the mini games and all that.
I look forward to checking out one day. I don't know. There's so much stuff I need to play, but
the series is a great spiritual successor to Shenmue for sure.
Yeah, that was another one I was playing a little bit before. I actually beat Shenmue 1, but 2, I'm probably going to play that whenever, though. But yeah, that's another very interesting one there.
Very cool. Eric, what have you been playing?
I'll have it behind me kind of, but it's I've been playing The Messenger that came out this week. It is a mixture. It's a weird mixture of Ninja Gaiden, Shovel Knight, and a Metroidvania type game, which is kind of weird because like half of the game is pretty much set up in a level like structure similar to Ninja Gaiden, where you're getting through the level, fight a boss at the end, go to the next stage. But then eventually you get like this power to warp between 8-bit and 16-bit version of the game that you have to do to get through puzzles or find new platforms. And then all of a sudden, the game opens up and allows you to go back to previous levels to find upgrades to progress further in the game. So, like, midway through the game, it decides to become a Metroidvania type game. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, this comes completely out of nowhere. And I guess it's fine enough how they do it. But I kind of just enjoyed playing it like it was a Ninja Gaiden game and just getting more power-ups as I went through. So it's kind of awkward it went in this direction. I think it would have done just fine just sticking to the Ninja Gaiden route. But it's still fun for how it is. It's fun to do puzzles by switching between your 8-bit counterpart and your 16-bit counterpart. Like, everything changes. Like, the terrain changes, your character model changes, the music changes from an 8-bit soundtrack to a 16-bit soundtrack. And it's really cool doing that. And I think the game's great overall. I do highly recommend to people that like those action type titles. It's only $20. You can play it on your Switch, PC. I believe it's on like PS4 also. So I definitely recommend it. It's great for what the price it is.
Yeah, I've actually seen a little bit of buzz about this game, and that's pretty interesting that it does a switch between 8-bit and 16-bit. You don't usually see that too often. But the art style looks, I'm really digging it.
Yeah, I've seen one of my friends stream it. Was it yesterday or the day before? Well, either way, I seen them streaming it there, and it actually looked like a really awesome game. It was it's from Devolver Digital, or at least they published it, and they usually publish a lot of really good indie games that look really, really nice. And yeah, that one like looked really cool. I definitely can't wait to try it out whenever I can there.
Very cool. How much was it, Eric?
$20.
$20?
Yep.
It's not bad at all. I mean, it's
and like I said, the soundtrack's really good too. I kind of want to find it on YouTube and
kind of
like add it to the library list.
Very cool. Well, I've been playing some more Cosmic Star Heroine, mainly because first because I'm enjoying it, but also because Dragon Quest XI's coming out soon, and I don't want to start anything else. Been playing more of that, and I'm still enjoying it, man. Like it's one of those games that I recognize is just kind of silly. The story is, so you can't get all caught up in like, well, this is ridiculous, because out around every corner you're going to have some crazy plot point that comes up, and really it's just kind of almost tropey in of itself that it's doing it on purpose. But I think what I just really enjoy about it is just how well the art design is for the game, and just how cohesive the world feels with the premise. And on top of that, the soundtrack is it just keeps getting better and better. So I'm really enjoying it. I don't think it's everyone's cup of tea, so I can't recommend it for everyone, but I do really, really like it.
Yeah, that's one I definitely need to play at some point.
Yeah, so I mean, it's been on the PS4 and Steam for a while, and it just came out on the Switch, which kind of brings us to our topic here. So, Cosmic Star Heroine, it's been released for a while on various platforms, but the developer, Zeboyd Games, the co-owner of the studio, Robert Boyd, was talking in a forum recently, and he was complaining about Nintendo and their policy towards indie developers. Now, he's since removed some of these comments, but it's kind of, I think this probably, he wishes he didn't do this, but anyways, so let's go. I'm going to go through some of this, and then we're just kind of talk about it. So this article is from Destructoid. It's pretty short, so I'll just read the whole thing real quick. That way everyone listening can be on the same page. So it's titled Cosmic Star Heroine developer alleges that Nintendo could have done more to promote the Switch port. It was released earlier this month. Releasing a game on Nintendo platform is a completely different experience for all parties involved. An overwhelming amount of studios have reported great success and a massive improvement of internal policies compared to the dark days of the Wii and the Wii U. Externally, Nintendo seems to be embracing indie developers with greater access to dev kits, confirmed by many smaller studios, and promotions like the 90s showcase and highlight streams, but not every developer is going to have the same great experience. And Robert Boyd, co-owner of Zeboyd Games, has shared their thoughts on the matter by way of the popular forum Reset Era. Earlier this month, Zeboyd released a Switch port for Cosmic Star Heroine, and it seems as if it did not go swimmingly. Boyd alleges that Nintendo didn't promote it enough, summing the situation up with the following statement, which has been since deleted. We got an okay number of reviews, but yeah, we couldn't get Nintendo to mention the game anywhere. Real shame, since even a retweet from Nintendo probably would have given us a big boost in visibility. I get that it was just a port, but after spending months getting stonewalled by Nintendo when we were trying to get permission to release on Switch, going fine, we'll play by your rules, and getting a publisher so we could get approved, and still getting ignored by Nintendo when the game was done and set to release is highly frustrating. Boyd further alleges that Nintendo did not fix the store page before launch, despite requests to do so, and that the page was trailerless and folks were unable to pre-order. Boyd has been relatively outspoken on platforms holders for years, previously criticizing Microsoft's indie initiative, also citing low visibility as a critical part of the game program's failure last year. Okay. Anyways, so let me skip that and go towards the bottom here. It says, a lot of the falls back on Nintendo's recent shocking, we want 20 to 30 indie games on the Switch eShop every week statement. That will most certainly impact indie developers. It's a target they're essentially hitting right now. While it's easy to celebrate and cheer for the Switch version sells 10 times more success stories, it's also important to analyze and the less successful tales and learn from them. Cosmic Star Heroine's failure to launch on the Switch might not be all Nintendo's per se, but it's possibly indicative of some of the Nintendo's growing pains as they attempt to accommodate third parties. I don't quite agree with that last statement there, but anyways, I have some thoughts on this, but if you all want to jump in first, and then I'll give mine because I've been talking for so long here.
That's essentially it. Welcome to Nintendo. Nintendo has been notoriously hard to get products onto their platform ever since dating all the way back to the NES. It's just how they are. It's like you got they give you so much trouble to the point that another company makes illegal copies and calls themselves Tengen, but find some legal loop around to find it. So, this is really nothing new. Almost every company and the people who make Cosmic Star Heroine should not feel separated from this. Every company, even bigger ones like Capcom, have to go through this stuff, to make sure that everything is right. Now, to Capcom's benefit, like they're a big AAA publisher company that has been trusted over years, but when you're a smaller indie company, Nintendo, and not only that, like everyone is trying to cram their indie games in Nintendo. They're kind of bringing back that, like, we need to make sure that what we're putting on there has some form of quality to it to put on the Switch. Mm-hmm. So, I bet it is a process trying to go through each of that. But on the other hand, I don't think it's mainly Nintendo's responsibility to promote your product. I mean, Nintendo releases so many other games around you. Like, it's not really Nintendo's job to make sure that your game is highlighted unless there is something very special about your game, or it's a game coming from them, or it's like a noteworthy IP coming back. It's like yours isn't a noteworthy IP. It may be a good to decent title, but it's not Mega Man. It's not.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of hype behind the game when it was going to launch, but at this point, it is just a port. It's not launching on the Switch. It's been out for 2 years.
Yeah, on top of that, it's a port. So, you know, you kind of take what you can get from Nintendo. I mean, they are notoriously pain in the asses to deal with, but you know, that's just how they play up there.
Bio, you got some thoughts?
Yeah, I think you pretty much nailed it right there. I can't really think of too much else I could add on there other than that. I know when the article mentioned something about like the layout of the store like hasn't changed or whatever. I think the layout for the eShop is actually pretty well organized, if I say so myself. I mean, I guess there's like a couple things they could change with that, but you know, like, but for the basic stuff though, I think it works fine. And you know, I was able to find Cosmic Star Heroine on there easily. Yeah, I guess it's a little shame that they don't have like a trailer for it, but you know, I knew it was coming out on there because I usually do check the section where it says like, you know, coming soon, and yeah, I've seen it on there. Same thing with a bunch of other games that also look pretty cool. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's promoted okay. I mean, I guess, you know, it could be better, but could be worse.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can see both sides of this argument. I think like the developer, he kind of points out some things that I could see like maybe Nintendo could do a little bit better. Like for example, he says, I get that it was just a port, but after spending months getting stonewalled by Nintendo when we're trying to get permission to release on Switch, going fine, we'll play by your rules, and getting a publisher for a digital release is kind of whatever, but we should get approved, and still getting ignored by Nintendo when the game was done and set to release is highly frustrating. I think after another part, they said they were had a hard time getting a Switch development kit after it was approved. I think that type of stuff, or I think later they said like they wanted a trailer on their store page and like Nintendo wasn't responding or something. I don't know, like that type of stuff. I can sympathize and be like, okay, that's kind of like they should probably do a bit better job with that. But when it comes to like promoting the game, I mean, right when I logged into the eShop, like I saw Cosmic Star Heroine. That's how I found out about it coming to the Switch. But let me point something out here too. If you go to their webpage for Cosmic Star Heroine, talk about promoting. It says available on Humble Store, Steam, GOG.com, PS4, and PS Vita. They didn't even put the Switch on their website. You know? Wow. So it's like, how are you going to complain about Nintendo when you're not even promoting it yourself? I don't know. I'm sure they put it on Twitter or whatever, and maybe not a lot of people go to their website, but I just thought that was kind of humorous. I'm like, come on, man. You at least put it on your website.
It sounds like they're putting like minimal effort on their end to promote it, and they're expecting the companies to take care of most of the promotion for them, which I disagree with. I think if anyone needs to put the main effort into it, like like definitely you need to do it. Like put your video on YouTube that's coming to Switch, update your website, you know, post it everywhere you can.
That's the other thing. I went to their YouTube page because the studio does have a YouTube page, and the last trailer was like a year ago, so they didn't put up another video for the Switch. I mean, like, if you're going to criticize Nintendo, I mean, you should probably make sure you have your own bases covered first, you know, before you criticize them for not promoting your stuff. But I thought it was crazy. I didn't realize Nintendo was releasing 20 to 30 indie games on the Switch every week. So if you add that in there, I mean, geez, I mean, yeah, Cosmic Star Heroine's probably a bigger of the indie games, but yeah, that's a lot for them to deal with, even for a company the size of Nintendo. So it's, you know, there's going to be some growing pains.
Yeah,
So.
definitely. I mean, as it's a pretty decent title, but Cosmic Star Heroine doesn't really do anything that makes you go wow. Essentially, I mean, it's not something like Shovel Knight or insert other famous indie title here.
Sure,
but I mean, it's a serviceable game, but it's not something that's gonna. You're not going to see the main characters of Cosmic Star Heroine on Smash Bros.
Well, hey, I wouldn't mind it.
Cool. But yeah.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Very cool. Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe I kind of wonder if this. I saw the developer, he deleted his conversation there, and I kind of wonder if he just shot himself in the foot. Because if Nintendo was difficult to deal with before, as such as getting your trailer to be put on your store page, or getting development kits or whatever the case may be, I'm pretty sure they're not going to be responding to your emails now. So I don't know. That was kind of funny.
Yeah, but I suggest you don't bite the hand that feeds you either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, you guys got any other thoughts on that?
Well, one thing I do want to say is that I think it's kind of funny that they on their website it says that they have the Vita version out, and like not many people talk about the Vita that much anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, that option's out there, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's strange. It's a smaller studio. I think only like 2 people. It took them 5 years to make that game. So, and then they outsourced the music. So, I mean, it's definitely an impressive feat in of itself. And I'm sure they're just stressed with getting the game out, getting it bug tested, and then trying to port it to the Switch. And I don't know, but yeah, Nintendo should probably be, not make it so difficult for some of these indie developers. But at the same time, they got to promote their own stuff. So for sure. Moving on though, we have Dragon Quest 11 reviews. They're out, and most of them are pretty positive. I'm seeing right here, IGN gave it an 8.8, GameSpot gave it a 9. Metacritic is at an 88%, which is pretty high. And I think other places I've seen have been even higher. I've seen 9.5s. So it's all around pretty positive, except I think 1 or 2 reviews kind of criticized the game, saying that it doesn't really innovate anything. And I don't know, Eric, I think you have a lot of thoughts with this, given Dragon Quest is your favorite series.
It's not so much it innovates, it's so much that it celebrates the classic JRPG type of deal. It's actually kind of funny. If you actually go on Metacritic and compare Dragon Quest 11's reviews to Dragon Quest 8's on the PS2's reviews, it's almost exactly the same. And what like the reviewers have said are like the top review or like the top like highest scored ones to the lowest scored ones. It's like it's not innovative. It doesn't bring anything to the table, and it's like Dragon Quest 8 is like loved by many JRPG fans. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of funny to spot out, but this is actually I was kind of expecting this to be a thing. I think it was going to do really well in what it excels in, and bringing a classic type JRPG back while still adding some modern aspects to it. Like enemies are in the field, no more random encounters. You run into them, it's kind of more seamless now. But it's still turn-based, but you can like use kind of like a dynamic camera for it now. It's got all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, when I mean, obviously I haven't played it yet, so I'm kind of just speaking about a game I haven't played here. But I've seen a lot of footage and other like kind of streams of the game, and there seems it's kind of disingenuous for some of these reviews to say. And I've even seen it in some of the positive reviews as well. Like, hey, this is a great game. It's a great classic formula, and it's just done really well. But if you're expecting, the series to be updated in any way, like, don't expect that. I don't really think that's a very accurate argument because, like you said, like there's no random encounters. I mean, they went through and they added voice acting, which isn't in the Japanese release. Everything seems pretty polished to me. Like I obviously they didn't update it completely like they did with the other Square game, Final Fantasy 15. But I don't want it to go that far. Like, it's kind of refreshing to have like a classic JRPG series still making that classic formula. The only criticism I did see that I thought was probably accurate, I obviously haven't played the game, but one of the reviewers said, hey, like, when I want people to or when I want games to innovate, I don't mean like I don't need it to be innovative and like reinventing the wheel, but maybe some of these older series should have like modern day conveniences, like, for example, being able to save anywhere in the game, or if you have to have a save point, at least put a save point before the boss. Don't put it at the beginning of a dungeon. Like, you know, those are like old school mechanics that are just frustrating in 2018. And, you know, from that perspective, I can kind of get that criticism. But when people are complaining that like, oh, of course, it's another turn-based JRPG, like, you know, it's just like, come on, like you can still make a good game in that formula, you know?
Yeah. I mean, Dragon Quest always gets compared to Final Fantasy, which I can understand to an extent, but the Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest have two different philosophies in their design. And Final Fantasy always wants to evolve the RPG genre, and Dragon Quest always wants to celebrate it. The classic JRPG tropes. They want to take what worked and make it better, is how Dragon Quest usually sees things. And Final Fantasy just wants to be like, okay, what can we do to take RPGs to the next step? Dragon Quest usually isn't about that. Dragon Quest cares more about making a cozy, comfortable RPG. You can sit down with a controller. You don't have to, you know, do crazy actions like Final Fantasy 15 where you're warping everywhere and all this crazy spectacle work. Like, Dragon Quest has always just been a grounded, you know, very calm, fun game that makes you warm inside. If I want to take it to a weird angle.
I would argue that Final Fantasy's experiment with trying to be cutting edge has been to its own detriment for like 15 years or 10 years. Like, I don't think I've really enjoyed a Final Fantasy that's come out in like since like 2004.
I mean, I appreciate what Final Fantasy tries to do. I mean, and I'm glad Final Fantasy does that. I'm just
you're saying it's a different series.
Yeah, well, it's hard to compare the two because their philosophies are different. I'm glad Final Fantasy does what it does, and I'm glad Dragon Quest does what it does. But, you know, are you a big Dragon Quest fan at all, Bio?
Oh yeah. I really liked 8 a whole lot. That one's like definitely one of the best. And funny enough, the very first Dragon Warrior on NES, that was actually the first RPG I ever beat. And man, did that take forever as a kid. But
that's one hell of a first RPG to beat.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that was so hard, but so fun though at the time. I don't think I would ever do it again though, because that game is very, very difficult. But anyways, though, when it comes to Dragon Quest, I kind of look at it as like, because I find with Final Fantasy is kind of like the very like dark and serious kind of RPG, while Dragon Quest is more of like the, you know, lighthearted campiness and maybe some corny lines here and there from characters. And I don't know, I kind of like that sometimes because sometimes I just don't want to like think about like too much, like, I don't know, like random, like
does this character exist? Do they not exist? Like, yeah, that's
like the thing of
are we in the future? Are we in the past? Like, where are we? Like, yeah,
like Final Fantasy always seems to be very like all over the place when it comes to various things. Where with Dragon Quest, like they pretty much like do exactly what they've been doing for like years, but yet like they still do a good job at like trying to like do what they. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't know a good way to explain it there, but hopefully you know like where I'm getting at, right?
Yeah, I think I kind of understand. I mean, the fact of the matter is the two series are different, and it's a lot of the people that have complained. I've seen that said the series didn't innovate in any way. Like it didn't like bring a new, like Persona 5. A lot of people felt like, oh, Persona 5, this is how you do turn-based combat, etc. in 2018, 2017, etc. And people have compared this game to Final Fantasy 15, saying like, oh, like look at what the Final Fantasy series is doing. Like, why isn't Dragon Quest doing that? And like, it doesn't bother me that Dragon Quest is not doing that. Like, I'm actually more excited for this game because it's that classic adventure that you know, you're expecting to experience. I mean, nothing's me. I was looking forward to Final Fantasy 15 for a long time, expecting that classic Final Fantasy experience. And when I bought it, I was like, this isn't a Final Fantasy game. This is like some other thing with like chocobos in it. Like, it's completely different. Like, this isn't, this it didn't really get the itch for me, right? Whereas if you're a big Dragon Quest fan and you've been looking forward to this game for a long time, I think it's going to get that itch. And like the fact that it's making a game for the fans, I think is really, really cool. You know?
Yeah. And it's, you have to remember also, this is a game that caters to Japanese fans first, and breaking tradition or like going way off the board is very unsettling a lot of times for them.
I agree.
Yeah, because this game is like the age range of this game in Japan is so vast, because the people who played Dragon Quest 1 as kids when it came out are now adults with their own children who have jobs. And when they came out with something like Dragon Quest 10, it's actually one of their lowest selling titles, because it's an online game where you do have to dedicate some time to progress in the game and work with other people. And the audience that you were catering to was like, but I have like a wife, children, jobs. It's like, I don't really have time for this. And I think they kind of realized that after they're making the 10th one. Now, granted, there are a lot of good single player elements to Dragon Quest X, but you do have to deal with all the online stuff to deal with that. And I know I say this as someone who plays Final Fantasy 14 regularly, but like I said, Final Fantasy is always looking at ways to try something different or new each time. And Dragon Quest has always been kind of, you know, like I said, something for like people who are just fans of very traditional JRPGs.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, go ahead.
Oh, I just said yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, exactly. I think you kind of nailed it on the head there. I mean, I saw the Kotaku review, and the reviewer there, he lived in Japan for like 15 years. And he was talking about like all the Dragon Quest games he played while he lived in Japan. And I don't know if this is accurate. Maybe this is just his experience. I don't live in Japan, obviously. But he was saying that a lot of people around his age group, when these games would come out, they would play it for like an hour, hour and a half every day in the morning before going to work, or maybe in the evening before going to bed. And they would just play it for like 8 months, just an hour every day, hour and a half every day. They weren't really sitting down with it for 12-hour increments, because they couldn't anymore, but it was something nostalgic that they grew up with. And that's probably one of the reasons why the online formula, like you said, didn't really work too well, because you can't really play online games for 45 minutes in the morning. You have to put in some hard time.
Granted, it was still a success in Japan, and it still is today, and I still want it over here because it's still part of the main lineup and it's got to be played.
Yeah.
But it's funny they do that, because Dragon Quest 9, when they came out on the DS, is definitely one of their highest selling Dragon Quests ever. And like you said, where they only had like an hour in the morning and the evening to do it, now that they had it with them, they could like play it on the train, they could play it during their lunch break at work. Putting on a handheld was a pretty brilliant strategy, despite going from such a beautiful looking console game like Dragon Quest 8 to going to a DS, like taking Dragon Quest 9 to a DS where it doesn't look as good.
Yeah.
It really goes to show. I'm sorry, I'll let you. But it really goes to show that like they really, most of the time, they really care about how they can get Dragon Quest to their main audience, like easier, better, which is Japan mostly. But we get a little love in America.
Yeah, it's funny with Dragon Quest 9 because at that point in time, like in the United States, if you took a big franchise like Dragon Quest and you put it on a mobile, the next entry is on a mobile device, the general opinion then was just like, oh, wow, like this series is in trouble. Like, why are you putting this major franchise on a mobile device? But in Japan, that was like, no, that's a brilliant marketing idea. It's a totally different outlook. Now, today, people get excited when they're like, oh, is it coming to the Switch? You know, it's kind of, it's dramatically changed the environment. So
the 3DS version, I think, sold more than the PS4 version in Japan.
Yeah, you know, it's convenient.
Not surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just the way how Japan works. Is that a lot of people living over there, they're always on the go. Where, well, I guess like, you know, people are on the go over here too, but you know, more so over there though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm on the go, like I'm going to work, but like I'm driving, right? I'm not on the train, so I can't play the 3DS version while I'm driving. It's kind of hard, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of opposite in Japan. It's like here in America, it's very console heavy. Yeah. Like we're console over handheld, whereas Japan it's like heavily handheld over console. Because apparently, like most of the day, like they're not home, and when they are home, they're either studying or if they're an adult, they need to take care of their children. And then, like he said, you only get like an hour before maybe like an hour before bed to play what you actually want to play.
Yeah. Good thoughts. You guys have any other thoughts with Dragon Quest in general?
Tuesday cannot come fast enough.
Yeah, dude. I freaking pre-ordered that thing on Amazon, and I'm seeing online people have already gotten their copies, apparently.
Yeah, in New York, apparently local stores are breaking their street dates, and it's made me teensy bit salty. Because I hate seeing people like post on like I'm not gonna point anyone out particularly, but and it's more than one person, so don't feel like I'm singling you out. But they're like just showing off that they're playing it, and I'm like, oh, come on, at least keep it to yourself till Tuesday.
Yeah. Well, I had like in the United States, we have a 3-day weekend, so I got Monday off. So I keep thinking like, dude, this would be great if this game would just show up Amazon. If it would just show up, I would have 3 days off in a row. I could just like plow through like large chunks of it, but nope, it's going to come out on Tuesday if I'm lucky from Amazon. So
yeah, I love my fellow JRPG fans, and I like each and every one of you. But seriously, stop telling me you're playing Dragon Quest XI. It's only making me angry.
Oh, that's funny. But yeah, unfortunately, I won't be able to get the game day one because, well, I just have like a lot of other things I just got to do. And of course, living in Canada, like brand new games, like AAA games are like $80. So yeah, I can't really.
Expensive.
Go. Yeah, it's really expensive to live in Canada right now. It sucks. But I still do what I do to survive. And, well, eventually I'll get it and I'll enjoy it because, you know, like 11 looks really good from the little bit that I've seen. I didn't try to look up too much because, you know, I do want to kind of keep it a surprise. But, yeah, I'm looking forward to it whenever I get there.
Yeah, it is on PC also. So, you know, always watch out for those Steam sales.
Yeah, you get it for like $8 or something like crazy. It's like, well, I'm buying that right now.
Gabe Newell special.
Yeah. So very cool. Moving on, we have. Let me go to the actual question. I'll read the full context because I don't want to just pull it out. Let's see here. So basically, the general question is, and I'll read the whole thing, but it says, what games have each of you really enjoyed that were largely disliked by many people? And why did you find enjoyment in them? So while you're thinking about that, we got the full comment here. I'll pull that up. All right. So this is from, I don't know how to pronounce this, but it's TEYSIND, Hastened. It's a gaming spot. He says, hey guys, awesome episode and topics. This is in response to our last video. He said, fantastic to hear .hack be mentioned on your podcast. I have a question for your upcoming episode with BioPhoenix. I'd love to hear his thoughts too. In your previous podcast with Dark Pixel Gaming, you touched upon some games you all didn't enjoy so much that were collectively liked by many people. I think from that episode, I said Persona 4 I wasn't a big fan of. But he said, for example, Mike talked about his dislike for numerous aspects of Nier. However, from time to time, I also came across small groups of people that find so much enjoyment in games that are highly disliked by many people. So I'd love to ask the opposite question. What games have each of you really enjoyed that were largely disliked by many people, and why or how did you find enjoyment in them? Your positive thoughts might even shape my own and other people's perspective on any largely disliked games in ways that we might even better enjoy them. Stay spot on. Appreciate the question there. And I got some ideas, but I'm interested in what you guys have. So
I got one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
And before I say it, I just want to say that I know who Tyson Spot is, and he's a great guy. So
Okay,
it's cool
very
to
good.
see him make a comment on there. But yeah, so the
Cool.
one that I picked was actually a Vita game. It was actually one of the first Vita games I ever got, and it was a game called Mine Zero. For those that don't know, it's a first-person dungeon crawler, and the thing with this game that like a lot of people like didn't like about it when it came out was that a lot of people said that it's basically like a Persona ripoff, and you know, like they're not wrong about that. In a lot of ways, it does borrow a lot of elements from that game, at least when it comes to like concept wise. But the thing that I do like about it though is that, and granted, I don't think this game is like amazing or anything like that, but I
Sure.
enjoyed it a lot more than most people did. Is that like I like the I kind of like the fact that it kind of felt like kind of like an older like first person dungeon crawler, but also didn't feel like too cryptic in a lot of ways. So, you know, I did like that aspect of it. I love the music in the game. That was just awesome. And the voice acting was really good, even though it did have a lot of the same voice actors that were also in Persona 4. So I thought that was kind of amusing, but you know, it was actually done well though. So that's always well and good. And also, I kind of like some of the dungeon designs in that game. Like there was like one dungeon that kind of looked like Alice in Wonderland, and then there was another one where it was like a really trippy movie theater where it was like very psychedelic. I thought it was really cool looking. And yeah, like when I beat that game, like when did I beat it? I think it was like 2015 or so. I was like, yeah, this game was pretty good. Not amazing, but I definitely liked it a lot better than what a lot of people gave it credit for. It's hard for me to recommend it to other people because, you know, it is a very kind of basic for what it is, but at the same time, it kind of has like some interesting elements to it. And the story itself, despite it being like you know, taking a lot of elements from Persona, I think it does do an okay job at coming up with some of its own concepts.
Looks like it did. Was it re-released on Steam as well? Looks like it was.
Yeah, it's on Steam as well, which is kind of a surprise.
Yeah, I can actually see, because I see what you're saying. The reviews are mixed. I don't know. People get really upset when they feel like something's kind of emulating another formula. It comes back to what we were talking about with Dragon Quest XI. It's just some people just really want a formula to be innovative and like new and fresh. And sometimes it's kind of like, hey, like we already have something that was really well done in a previous game. And if you can emulate it really well and just kind of recreate that experience, there's nothing wrong with that either, you know? I mean, and
well,
it sounds.
I think. Oh, sorry. I was going to say. I think what it is that it's really hard to come up with a very, very original idea these days. So I can understand why like certain games would take like certain elements from other games, but then kind of does like its own spin with it. Like I don't see a problem with that. I mean, there's a really good example I had with this what I was about to say here, but I forgot.
It's all good. Well, if you think about it, this happens a lot in other like artistic areas, right? So like, let's say music, anytime you buy an album from a band, it's all the time. You're seeing like, oh, like, well, these bands influence this. You can really hear this influence. You can hear the Metallica influence, but you can hear like an Alice Chains vibe on there. And people like celebrate those influences, right? But when it comes to like video games, it seems like, no, we want every release to be completely original and new. And, you know, it's as long as you're not like, as long as it's not straight out plagiarism, I don't see the issue, you know?
Yeah, I'm fine if you want to, if you're clearly inspired by another game. I mean, almost everyone is inspired by something to some degree. It's more about what do you bring to the table that sets you apart from other games that are like it. I mean, I don't mind if you're like a turn-based RPG or you're using an action element similar to FF15. It's, you know, what does your world, your characters, your elements and everything, what is unique about yours that stands out? And there have been games in the past that are like that feel like they're like clearly ripoffs of like other RPGs. But then you get like I can't really name any top of my head at the moment, but I mean there are other ones where you are like you can tell there is some inspiration from another game, but it's like, you know what? I still enjoy this. I feel like it still does something that sets it apart from the other games. And that's clearly fine. If that's how this game is, then you know, I wouldn't really rip on it for that. I may mention it's like inspired by Persona clearly, but it still brings something to the table that makes me want to see it to the end.
Yeah, if I can touch base on the game a little bit, on one other thing I would like to say is that, like, it doesn't have, like, the social aspect like Persona 4 and 5 and 3 do. It actually, like, it just has, like, a simple, like, quest line for a character thing, and, like, that's really it. There's no, like, life sim aspect to it. So if you're not a fan of the life sim thing, you'll at least like it for that. Yeah. So you'll like it for that, but at the same time, it kind of feels more like the very first Persona on PS1, because that one was also a first-person dungeon crawler, but only that this one is not nearly as dated.
Yeah. I'm looking at kind of some of the video and screenshots on Steam. It looks like it's pretty polished for this type of game. So, yeah, and definitely, I am not a fan of the life sim. So maybe if you, because I've always said if you could just remove everything from Persona 4, as far as the life sim aspect, and just let me play the game, like I think I would love that game. So maybe this is right down my alley. So maybe the developer had a similar idea. Like, let's just remove all the basketball practice and the drama club aspects, and let's just play the game.
That's mainly what the mainline Shin Megami Tensei titles are.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, straight to the dungeons and overworld.
Oh, yeah.
Very cool. Eric, what do you got? Do you got a game or games that you really enjoyed that other people largely disliked?
I was thinking about it, and there was one title that came to mind when it was like that, and that is actually Record that came out for Xbox One and PC.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoyed it. It's not anything outstanding, but it is kind of like a typical third-person shooter. You're going around this large desert terrain, doing certain different objectives and tasks that are based on the story. And it was like co-developed / published with a concept, and it had some people who worked on from Retro who worked on the first Metroid Prime that were part of it, and I enjoyed the game for the most part. There are certainly some flaws to it, and there are some simplistic mechanics to it, like, you know, if an enemy's a color, you change that color gun and shoot enemy with it. But there was something fun and kind of immersive feeling about it, and I'm like, yeah, this game's pretty enjoyable. I like it. You know, it's a pretty decent title. Then I look at reviews and everyone's like, this is the worst game I ever played in my life. And like everything's like yellow to red. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, man, I was like, what did people not like about this game? And like they were calling it like generic, short, you know, simplistic mechanics, and like there were like apparently some real graphical bug issues that I didn't really find much of those. Mm-hmm. In there. I mean, you know, some small bugs here and there, but that's usually what I deal with like any type of open terrain type game. Yeah. But I don't know. I enjoyed it for the most part. It's clearly not in my top 10 list, but you know, for what it was, I think it did well enough. And just, you know, sometimes you go against what everyone else thinks, and that was clearly one of them.
Yeah. I mean, I've never even played it, so I can't really comment, but I'm watching the trailer, and it like I like the premise of it. It looks really, really cool. The world that's built. I actually think I remember people talking about this game when it came out. Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, this was around the time when Mighty Number 9 was a thing also that Concept was making, and they were in pretty negative light, still negative light today, but they were really starting to get into a negative light, and anything associated with Concept was definitely, I'm not saying that's their reason for doing it, but people are immediately putting it like in a negative light, like, oh, it's a Concept, you can't really trust whatever they make nowadays.
Yeah.
Even though their total count is like 2.
Yeah, I was actually just about to say that because I remember when that game came out, they said that apparently they used like some funds that was from Mighty Number 9 to help make that game, and I thought that was kind of weird at first because it's like, well, like, why would you be using like the money that you got from Mighty Number 9 to make a game that like we didn't even like know anything about? But I haven't played that one yet, so I don't have an Xbox One. But
I think it's on PC also.
Yeah, I could probably get it on there. My PC could probably run it, but the thing is, though, it does look like a pretty interesting game. I remember watching some stuff on it a couple years ago, and it looked pretty good. Probably not something I'd spend like a ton of money on, but something that I could, get on a sale.
Very cool. Well, I mean, at this point in time, I'm sure it's probably pretty cheap. So
yeah, I imagine it's like $20 or below now. If you see like a Steam sale for like $5, try it out, see what it's all about.
Yeah,
that for sure.
Yeah, I think sometimes price really factors into things. People might spend $60 or in Canada $80 on a game, and if I'm spending that much money on a game and it's not exceptional, like I tend to be a little more critical than if I got it on a $5 bin and I'm like, oh, I had this was a decent time,
Yeah, that is so true.
So, yeah, with me, I could. Oh, you got something else, Eric?
I was just kind of looking at it, saying Xbox One console exclusive on here. I wonder if they change their mind on that. Kind of curious.
Yeah. Well, that does happen. It's exclusive for the first month. Yeah, with me. Well, are you looking it up?
Yeah. Oh, hey, look, it is on. Well, this is interesting.
Up.
It is. There is a definitive edition of the game, but it's coming out this month, September 14th.
Perfect time for bringing this up, Eric.
Wow, what a mighty coincidence!
We are so on top of our news.
Wow. Huh. There we go.
Right. I'm kind of surprised that's getting a definitive edition.
I was speaking out of my ass, but my ass was right.
Yeah. Yeah. So with me though, I can think of 2 games. Like if I want to go like a game that's really, really not really appreciated, that I always enjoyed growing up. It was a PS1 game. It was that Final Fantasy fighter game, Airgees or whatever.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that.
I never really liked the fighter aspect, but like the RPG dungeon, it's kind of a ritual. Me and my cousin to this day, I have a cousin that's the same age. We grew up together, and whenever like he comes into town, we'll fire that game up and we'll just go through the dungeon mode. And we used to play that as kids. We'd stay up till like 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, just trying to get to the end of that dungeon. It's kind of like silly. There's not really a good story with it or anything like that, but I don't know. It's fun. It's a typical dungeon crawler game. Like you just go through and try to like get to the next floor, and you can like warp out and buy new equipment. You have to be mindful of what you eat and stuff like that. But it's always exciting, like being able to buy like a new sword and like a floor of the level of the dungeon that like you were struggling with before is now like a breeze. There's materia and stuff, so you can kind of use magic and stuff like that. But did you guys ever play around with that RPG part of that game?
Sadly, I only played the fighting part of it, and I was like, man, this game is not really good. I've heard about that mode. I just never got around to trying it because I thought it would be like really long and derivative or something.
Yeah, it's actually like I mean, like, don't go into it expecting like a AAA experience if you ever sit down with it. And definitely put it on the normal mode. If you put it on the hard mode, it totally removes you being able to go into the town at all. But yeah, it's just got like, I can't remember how many floors of the dungeon it is, but you just go through a dungeon and you keep going floor and floor, lower and lower and lower until you get to the end of the game. And it's a lot of fun. You can play it with somebody else and kind of trade off controllers. But the other game that I was thinking of that maybe isn't a good example because it's kind of well liked today, but I liked it when it came out and it was kind of crapped on when it came out, was the Shadow Hearts, the first game, not the prequel. But you go look at some of the reviews. Some of the reviews are giving it like a 6 out of 10. And I'm like, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I remember when I was looking up that game when I bought it back in 2015. I was looking up and I saw IGN gave it like a 5, and I was like, "What?"
Yeah, I'm like, this game is so. I thought it was a great game. I loved it, and especially like the gameplay, like the boss battles. Like I've been playing it recently, on and off, and like I'm just like, dude, some of these boss battles are just like afterwards. I'm like, that was a great boss battle. Like. I'm not grinding, and like it was like perfectly balanced. It's just, I don't know. It's really well done, I thought. I mean, I do think the sequel of the game is technically Shadow Hearts Covenant. I do think is overall a better game, but I really like that first one.
Yeah, I can talk about that series all day long if I wanted to, but to say the basics of what I need to say is that, yeah, it's definitely I'm not joking, like, it is, like, one of my, like, all-time favorite PS2 RPGs. Like, I think it's just as good as something like Dragon Quest VIII, not even joking. Of course, they're both entirely different in what they do, but I think, like, overall an enjoyment factor, like, I love both of those games, and the thing that I like about the first game a little better than 2 is that it has that like old school like survival horror look to it, where it has like the rendered backgrounds and all that. And of course, like the enemy designs are very Silent Hill tier. So I did like that aspect of it a lot more, where number 2, it's 3D, and of course there's still some really weird designs in number 2 as well. But I found number 1 like really like blew it out there.
Mm-hmm. I think
was Covenant the second one or third one?
The Covenant's number 2. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the fan base in general just did not like the third one at all. But
yeah, I will say though, with From the New World number 3, I think gameplay wise, it's still a good game. It's just the story is just garbage.
Oh, that's one of the things I really like about RPGs. So when the story's garbage, I have a hard time with it. But the first one is, I think people, if they sit down with it, they need to get through like the first couple of hours. There's one part of the game that's really early on, maybe the first 4 hours, that is just, honestly, I'll admit, is terrible. It's with that girl that it's telling the story of this girl that was like lost her voice, and she like traded her voice with her father's voice. And like,
you're talking about the part before they go on like the ship, right?
Yeah, but it's got this like ghost that like supposedly has her father's voice, and I don't know. She ends up having this horrible death, and she's like haunting the town or whatever. But there's this old lady that's like comes in a cutscene that's reciting the story, and she's telling the story, and the voice acting's so atrociously bad that she keeps making these sound effects trying to tell this chilling tale. And she's like, and she keeps doing that.
I remember that very well.
She keeps doing that. And I'm like, dude, this is terrible. Like I cannot take this seriously. But after that, the game gets really good.
However, the third game, it just looks so aesthetically different from the second one. It's like all brighter looking and.
Well, and that's one of the major criticisms of the first game, because some of the low reviews, they said, well, this game just looks like a really good PS1 game. And like, I think it came out around the same time as Final Fantasy X. So people were like, kept comparing it to that. Like, oh, look at Final Fantasy X. Look how great this looks like, and which isn't fair because Squaresoft had like $1 billion to spend, but.
Honestly, I like Shadow Hearts 1 better than Final Fantasy X. Don't get me wrong, I like Final Fantasy X, but.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's a game that I really enjoyed playing. I think mechanically, it's really well built. I do like the story. I think a little bit better in the first one than I do the second one. But I think overall, the second one, I'll admit, is technically probably on paper a better game. I'll by a little bit, but I still prefer the first one. But that's just me. But speaking of Final Fantasy X, though, moving on to our next topic, what side stories or alternate stories would you like to play from a Final Fantasy series? Let me pull up the actual deal here.
How many people are going to say prequel to Final Fantasy X with Jack, Aaron, and Braska?
Well, and that's the thing, Leon, because he asked this question. He was kind of pointing out. I'll go directly to where he's asking, but he said, and about seeing something you said of wanting to see the story of Jecht. He says, hell yeah. I've always wondered about that story, and I think it needed to be in Final Fantasy X too, but we got what we got. And speaking of that, for me, with games like 9 or 10, I'd love to have more. Instead of a remake, I'd love to play some side stories or some other stories within the world of each game, like the Journey of Jecht, maybe the Adventures of Tantalus Theater Troupe, or some story of Beatrix, something of Kefka's past, maybe when Genova arrived, and 7, things like that. What side stories or alternate stories would you like to play from an FF series?
I feel like we're kind of talking about like the FF15 DLC. like well, Final Fantasy 9, we have episode Beatrix. What was Beatrix doing during such and such event?
I want episode Nomura. Like, what was Nomura doing for the first 6 years of Final Fantasy 15? No. I'm trying to think side stories. I definitely would like to see what the whole Jecht thing. That would be really cool. Even though we already kind of got to see a little bit of that in Final Fantasy X, I'd love to see that story. I think from Final Fantasy 12, I'd love to see the actual fall when, with Bosch and just like his fall of his city, and then the eventual fall of where he got imprisoned, and just seeing Ash go into hiding and stuff. That might be kind of cool. What else? Let's see here.
Every time I try to think of something, like they've already done it. Like I'm thinking to myself, it would be cool to see how the Turks work, like outside of the FF7 story.
Well,
it's
yeah,
like,
there's
crap. They already did it. There was a mobile game.
There's not much I can say about Final Fantasy VII. They've kind of beat that horse to death.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to think. I think
even FF12 had some side stories already with like Vaughn and Anello, and then
I would like to see Balthier's story of how he was a judge and he left. That'd be cool.
That could be interesting.
I don't know if they could make a whole game about it, but if they could just kind of make like a mini feature about it, that'd be kind of cool.
Okay, I know this isn't like a moment in a game per se, but I think it'd be really cool if we had like, I don't know, a little bit more like background check on the character Cyan from FF6. Because he was a great character in that game, and I don't know. I need more of him in my life, man.
Oh, do you know what would be a great story? Potentially, it could be a prequel to FF5, and you could be the original legendary warriors that took down Enuo.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Or the Dawn Warriors who sealed Exdeath, Galuf and his group.
Yeah. I mean, they could do that, or I don't know, man. I'm just a big fan of like I hate to say it because it's kind of the Final Fantasy 15's formula, but if they came out with anything with Final Fantasy 9, like you said, what was Beatrix doing? If they just give me more of Beatrix, I would be very, very happy.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
For sure.
And I forgot the name of the lady in Final Fantasy 9. I think her name was like Lana or something. She had a major axe and she worked with the Merit a lot. Be interesting if there's like some side game, you're her as a mercenary and you going through her story.
Yeah, she's constantly, I'm trying to remember, she has that huge accent. She's constantly trying to she just meets up at random spots to try to murder everyone.
She was a cool and fun character, but we never really got to really know her.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of felt just like off-putting that she just kind of disappeared, and we didn't see from her except for maybe some small scenes and Madain Sari.
See, that whole game is kind of like in terms of like seeing what happens after, I usually don't want like sequels because for Final Fantasy games, because I feel like they just get ridiculous, like 10-2 or 13-2. But I'm not gonna lie, like if the Final Fantasy 9, if they came out with a sequel for that game, I would be very excited. I'd like to see what went on with that world. How did people cope with Vivi and I don't want to spoil stuff anymore, but just like I just kind of want to see what else is going on in that world, you know?
Yeah, I could always use more FF9.
I'm usually okay with this stuff. It doesn't directly involve like already established characters in their main game. So that's why I'm okay with something like a prequel to FF10, or like I just mentioned before, like a very far off prequel to FF5, because it gives them the opportunity to give them their own kind of contained stories and set worlds to explore and everything, and you don't feel like you're limited or bound by the rules of the original game. Like you can still be creative and do what you want without completely feeling that you have to cater to what the main title already established.
Yeah, that right there pretty much sums up my complaint with that one movie, Advent Children. Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
well, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, that movie, like, it has some entertaining parts in it, but there's a lot of things in that movie that I just feel like it doesn't work well for like an after story for the Final Fantasy VII. But that's just me, though.
Well, it feels like two completely different people made the game in the movie, which for the most part kind of did, because the characters didn't really feel like the characters they were in the original. And that's always the biggest complaint of Advent Children, that the characters didn't feel consistent with who they were in the original game.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, I mean, I liked the movie when it came out, but upon recent rewatchings, I'm just like kind of like smacking my head, like, whoa, what's going on here? This isn't very well done. But yeah, that's the biggest thing, is just being able to make something that other people can enjoy, and not have spoilers all over the place. So I can definitely appreciate that. But as far as like side stories, though, I mean, like I can't really think of. Oh, I can think of one that definitely needs to happen though. Final Fantasy VIII Laguna. I want more Laguna in my life. Laguna, like that's my favorite part about Final Fantasy VIII, is that whole like sequence of events and that part. I'm not a big fan of everything else, but that whole plot line was awesome. So if they could have something more with that character, I would be all about it.
You know what we need? We need a roller coaster tycoon like game, except it's the Final Fantasy X world and it's shoe puffs. or like a dinosaur tycoon type of deal. You take care of shoe pups, you sell them, you get people across the way. Sometimes you can pick up a person and throw them in the water and let them drown. Honestly, a Final Fantasy X prequel eject with the that just made me think of this, might actually be pretty funny, because if I remember correctly, Jack was like wasted and he like beat up the shoe puff or something and got like got kicked off of it. No, he got drunk and he killed the shoe puff. Oh, okay. He killed it. Thinking it was a monster trying to kill people, and that was the day he stopped drinking. Dude, I'm telling you, there's some great plot points in this game. Yeah, I mean that game calls out for a prequel. Oh, yeah. The first half of the game is just Jack like wasted, just like insulting people. Come on, Square, you can make this game.
Oh man, that would be so great.
I would be all about it. I don't know. I can't really think of anything else though. Can you all?
No, that's all I can think of for now.
I think Square Enix already took our ideas.
Yeah, I mean, I think somebody's there with like a notepad just copying stuff down. That's not a bad idea. Cool. So we have a few other comments. We'll just kind of, let's see here. Yeah, we have 2 other comments, and then we'll just kind of, that'll be it here. So let's jump into that. So we have Cody Murley, I think it's how you say it. He said about our episode last week, he said Grandia 1 with a new coat of paint and polished UI is very intriguing. They've been using backgrounds, especially haven't aged as well as other games. Beautiful sprites though. So this is great news. Bonus points if they add quality of life improvements to the weapon magic leveling system. While I love the story as one who prefers to play games optimally, I often felt frustrated since the game's battle system forces such players to fight battles in a silly manner, just to level elements, weapons accordingly. It would be nice to see if that reworked a little. Also, if they keep the English voice acting intact, I look forward to many memes, jokes about the voice acting for Colonel Mullen. Still among the worst in any game I can recall. Thanks for the podcast. Keep making great content. Appreciate the comment. Bio, did you ever play the first game in that series?
Grandia 1, I played it for maybe an hour, if that. And okay. So I can't really say much, but it seems like a good game. The one that I mostly played was 2, and I beat that recently, and I loved it. So,
and I supposedly
I that one a lot.
Supposedly 2 is not supposed to be as good as the first one, so I'm looking forward to this.
That's up for debate.
Yeah, I don't know. I know some people that say that the first game is kind of slow at the beginning, but then it gets really good. Where with 2, I found the beginning part starts out really good and then just keeps going. And I don't know, I really like number 2 a lot. I wouldn't mind replaying it again, for the future.
It'd be hard to argue anyone who says 1 is better than 2 or 2 is better than 1, because each of them brings something pretty cool to the table that I enjoyed about both of them. So kind of like Final Fantasy, it's kind of like your preference type of deal, which one you like more than the other. I mean, they're both fantastic games. It's just, some people liked FF9 more, some people liked FF10 more. It's just...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I guess what I mean by better, critically at the time, Grandia 1 got a 9.2 out of 10 from IGN, and then Grandia 2 got 7. But
wow.
Yeah, so to me, that's where I was kind of getting that from. But it might be one of those things where, looking back now, people realize that was kind of a joke, with Shadow Hearts getting a 5. Obviously, it's not a 5. But yeah, I look forward to playing it some more. I've only played it back when I was a kid, the first one, on a rental from Blockbuster. So it's kind of hard for me to filter that through. However long later, but we'll have to see when it comes out. And then go ahead.
Sorry. One thing I do want to add on with Grandia 2 is that the first Grandia was originally on Saturn, but only in Japan. But then it came out over here on PS1. Where with Grandia 2, that was on the Dreamcast originally, and unfortunately, as good as the Dreamcast was, the system was not nearly as popular as what it should have been.
Mm-hmm.
The loading times were pretty up there for Grandia 2 when it came out on the Dreamcast, but a lot of games had high loading times on the Dreamcast. That was mostly because it was still a CD-ROM based console.
Yeah.
Well, loading times were kind of the thing back then. That's kind of what you had to deal with. So that's to be expected. I know the Steam version. There's a Steam version, right?
Yeah, that's how I played it. Yeah,
and that was a pretty good version.
Yeah, it was good. Only minor complaint I have is that there is a couple cutscenes where it'll have a little graphical glitch where you'll see right through the floor. But other than that though, it's pretty well done. It never crashed. It doesn't lag. And there's hardly any loading in it. So yeah,
okay.
It's a good.
The re-release was 16:9, not 4:3. HD widescreen.
Oh yeah. It's you can customize the resolution in it. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. And then our final comment. We had some comments from BioPhoenix, but he's currently here, so
yeah.
And then I'm sorry, we had another topic too I forgot to bring up. So let's just go ahead and we'll jump into that real quick from your comment. But Langrisser 1 and 2, that's coming out on the Switch soon. We don't have a release date for that. You want to kind of fill people in on that game real quick?
Yeah, so Langrisser, when it came, the first entry came out over here on the Genesis called Warsong. And I didn't play a lot of that game, though, but the game series I mostly played was the spiritual successor to that series, which I'll get there. But basically, Langrisser is a tactical RPG. But one of the main draws for me with that series was the art style being done by Satoshi Yorishihara. I think that's how it's pronounced. It's like really like amazing looking art style, and I love it. And anyways, though, like the gameplay, like I said, is like a tactical RPG, and it kind of sort of reminds me of Fire Emblem in the sense that, like, you know, you do have a sort of a like an affection meter with like other characters, but it's not done in like the same way as like Persona is, so don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I haven't really played too much of the Langrisser games because, you know, they're mostly like only in Japan, and because of that, like, you know, I just never got around to playing them, and of course they're not in English, although I think 4 got fan translated, but I just never got around to it though. But like I said, though, I mostly played Lancer, which is the spiritual successor to it, which still has like the same art style and everything. And I believe it's the same company too that made that. And that one was a really, really good series of games. I played through 2 and 3, which is on a collection disc on PS2 called Lancer Generations, done by Working Design. And the fact that this like game is getting a remake, 1 and 2, that's really great stuff. I mean, yeah, it's a little unfortunate that they changed the art style, but I can understand why they changed it since, you know, the original artist hasn't worked on anything in like over a decade. But, you know, yeah. It is what it is. But still, though, it still looks nice, though. And that's all I'm glad for, because at least they didn't make it look like a mobile game.
Yeah. So I have, from basically kind of like mimic real quick what you're saying there, is I kind of looked this up because it has a lot of games in the series, but it looks like the only one that really came out here was the first one. I think they re-released another one like down the road. I think I read somewhere, but people didn't really like it. But I know this game coming up, or this kind of remake, is kind of really hyped because a lot of people have played the series based on, like you said, fan translations, and it looks like it's kind of like a cross between like kind of like Fire Emblem, and it's kind of got its own like little thing going. But it looks really cool. I really like it. It's kind of disappointing, like you said, the artist isn't working on it because he's got a really unique style, I think. But it looks like I'll check it out when it comes out. I just want to get a release date and see, is it actually coming out in North America for sure?
That I do not know yet. It just says that, you know, it's actually a thing that's happening. I don't think it has any plans of getting localized just yet. Hopefully it does. And man, that would be so good, because that's a series I never would have expected to get like a remake, like at all, because I thought like CareerSoft was like dead.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing I was kind of surprised about, was because the game came out originally. The first one came out in you know, early 90s, and then it really didn't get much traction here in North America, apparently with sales, but it did well in Japan, and then it just kept going. They kept releasing games, but you know, different people were working on it, etc. So the fact that like it's coming out here, I'd be surprised if we do get a localization of it, but I wouldn't be that surprised given the fact that people have played fan translations of it here, and you know, in the West, and have kind of sparked interest. You know,
I feel like we're going to get most of the Sega retro titles over to the Switch in some way or form. Like, they're already confirming about the Phantasy Star games over time coming out,
which is awesome
for it. And then you got I'm very sure Shining Force will probably make its way there also. I've never played Langrisser. I can't even pronounce it correctly. Langrisser.
I think here the first one was called Warsong, but yeah.
Or Warsong. But I don't know. If it comes out and it looks interesting enough, I'll definitely try it.
Yeah, like I said, they are tactical RPGs, and I know those are not for like everyone. I don't know what everyone thinks about them in here, but like I said, like they're games that like you have to know exactly what you're getting into to.
And I like Fire Emblem, so you know, if it's something like that, then I should feel right at home.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Then you should be fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. And then from there we have a final comment. Jam Gamecast, good guy there. He said, "I'm very excited for Grandia 1 and 2 coming to the Switch. I agree with Eric. Hopefully this sells well. Other companies may want to re-release their older JRPGs on the Switch. And that seems like what is currently happening. That's the trendy thing to do. Re-releases on Switch, and I'm all about it. So,
yeah, I want to see the good stuff. I want to see like every AAA company like start bringing their stuff in. Playing Breath of Fire 3 or 4 on that screen would be amazing. And
oh man,
I could just only imagine the possibilities at this point.
Yeah. I know Capcom has been doing pretty good when it comes to, remastering their stuff. Like recently they announced that they are remastering Onimusha on PS4 and the Switch. And that's awesome because I love that series. And yeah, hopefully they can do something with Breath of Fire because that's a series that they pretty much like forgot it exists.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I'm excited for the Onimusha one remaster, but I'm kind of off put that they didn't make a HD collection package with 2 and 3 or potentially 4 in it, because when Devil May Cry HD came out, it had 1, 2, and 3 in it. And Onimusha by itself is a great game, but it's still a pretty short game. It's something that would be better complemented by 2 and 3, which are also pretty good games. I mean, 3 was the best one of the 3.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Yeah, that's something I that is kind of odd that they're just doing the 1. I'm thinking they're probably going to just do the 1 for now just to see how it does, and then maybe later on they might do 2 and 3, and then they might do a combination of having all 3 later, but that's just me speculating things. But yeah, though it would have been nice if they did 1, 2, and 3 right at the get-go though.
I'm feeling something might happen because Capcom's all about the pleasing the fans, I feel right now. So we may see a new Onimusha.
Oh, that'd be sweet too. Oh my god. Especially with all the samurai style games that are coming out, like Sekiro and Ghost of Tsushima and Nioh 2.
I'm glad you remember those names because I could not.
Yeah, I'm kind of a weeb. Not really, but I just like a lot of Japanese stuff. But yeah,
we all have a little weeb inside of us.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I actually somebody called me that on a forum comment or YouTube. I don't usually comment on YouTube comments that aren't my own videos or some people I've been corresponding with. But I commented on a Octopath Traveler video and I said I prefer the Japanese audio. I couldn't believe it. All these people start ganging up on me, calling me a weeb. And I was like, well, I didn't really say I
was bad.
Yeah, I was just well, the English voice acting is bad, and I figured well, I don't really know what they're saying in Japanese, so that's why I prefer the Japanese one. But it was I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm a weeb now.
Yeah, aren't we all sometimes? But one little thing I want to mention with voice acting, and because we all like the Shadow Hearts games, did you know that in the first Shadow Hearts, all the voice actors in that game are they're all voice actors that worked with 4Kids, stuff from Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and all that. Isn't that hilarious? Yeah. For an example,
it's the same people. Or just
for an example, Veronica Taylor, the voice of Ash Ketchum, is Ash Ketchum. Oh my god!
The Ketchum family takes great offense to your insult.
Yeah.
Email from Mr. Ketchup. Yeah.
Yeah, Ash Ketchum. Her voice actor is Alice in that game.
Really?
Yeah, and apparently the voice of Kaiba from Yu-Gi-Oh is Yuri, though he barely says anything because, the cutscenes in that game don't have a lot of voice acting in it. But yeah, no, it's just some little random factoid that I know and I find amusing.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, kind of the stuff you'll find when you really delve into stuff like that. That kind of that voice acting in that game is kind of hit or miss. Sometimes it's actually pretty good, and other times it's if it's a character that doesn't really have anything critical to the plot. I think at the beginning you have that Japanese soldier that's in that first cutscene that's
oh yeah,
we're taking this girl to Japan, and I'm like this is so bad.
Yeah, that sounds that sounds like Joey's voice almost from Yu-Gi-Oh, which I thought was funny.
Yeah, but it's just like it's like you took somebody that like has never acted before in their life, and you're like, read this paper.
I mean, it's still better than what we got from Chaos Wars. There's some Shadow Hearts characters in there.
Oh my god, that game is so like the room of RPGs. Like it's so it's so cringe, but so funny.
It's funny that you read in the manual all the English voice actors, and almost all of them have the same last name.
Yeah,
they apparently got like the guy's like one of the voice directors like families or something to come in and do it, and I was like, huh, well, okay. That seems very professional.
Yeah, I think when it came to Chaos Wars, the publishing for that game, I guess they didn't give them like a lot of funds to work with the game, so it's like, you know, at that point they might as well just not put any voice acting at all just to save them money, but I guess they just had to do it. But hey, I'm not really that sad about it there, because at least they made some comedy gold in there, so
yeah, but
I'll never change it.
If you only have so much money, like I guess you had to balance. Like, okay, well, I think the game came out like the mid 2000s, roughly. Like, it's like, well, people expect voice acting now, so if we don't put voice acting, it's not really going to sell. But I don't think the solution is terrible voice acting either. But anyways,
I remember back then I was thinking about buying it, and someone I know told me, it's like, whatever you do, do not buy that game. Like, I don't care if it has Beyond the Grave from Gungrave in it. Just avoid it at absolutely all cost. And then he actually showed me a video of like the voice acting. I was like, dear God. I'm like, I'm not a voice actor, and I could do better than this.
Yeah, you shouldn't feel like you can do better than the person that was hired. That's never a good feeling. But anyways, so that about wraps us up here. BioPhoenix, man, thank you for coming on. Really good discussion here. We'll have to have you back on in the future. But anyone listening to this, whether it be on the audio only version or watching us on YouTube, make sure you go check out his YouTube channel. Just BioPhoenix. Just search out. Yeah. Like he said, you come out with real obscure but unknown stuff, and kind of opens your eyes to a lot of games that you may have never heard of before. So I really enjoy it. So I urge you all to check it out. And yeah, just thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. It's been a lot of fun. I definitely wouldn't mind doing this again, but of course, you know, like I'd rather like have you know, if you guys get any other guests, you know, they should go on first before I go on again, sort of thing.
Yeah, but for sure.
In the meantime, though, you know, I'll still listen to your guys' stuff when I can, and of course, you know, I hope everyone has a good time, and you know, I'm looking forward to hearing more about Dragon Quest XI when that comes out relatively soon.
Yeah, with our channel, we just go with the flow.
Yep. So I know next week we'll probably be talking at length about Dragon Quest. So
if I'm even deciding to come on.
Yeah, Eric's going to be busy.
It'd be like, it's like, Eric, are you going to turn around and start talking about the game? Yeah, in a second. Like, come on, we're recording right now.
It's just like a video of Eric, the back of Eric's head. His response on everything is like, yeah, absolutely. But anyways, so you all can look forward to that, I guess, next week. And we appreciate you listening. So we'll check you out next week. Thanks, guys.
All right. Take care.
All right. See you all later.